Well,
We are
good
live.
afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the second episode in our series, The Logistics of Marketing. We're really excited to continue on in this series. And today, our topic is marketing in your tech stack. So before we dive in, I want to give a little bit of background on why logistics of marketing is a thing, why we exist. Marketing in our space, logistics and transportation, has evolved so much in the past 3 to 5 years. So, as Nick and I, the founders of Logistics of Marketing, we wanted to come around and find a way to bring different perspectives from our industry together to talk about topics that are crucial to the success of our companies, our businesses. So, in our first series, we had the opportunity to sit down with Grace Sharkey and Charlie Safro and talk about how marketing affects your hiring strategy, something so crucial to the growth of so many businesses in our space. And today, we have the opportunity to talk with Dagmara Postelle and Jake McLeod about how marketing affects your tech strategy and how that relationship should exist. So, with that, let me introduce first Dagmara Postelle. How are you today? And can you just give us a little bit of an intro about you and Parade?
Sure. So my name is Dagmara. I'm a head of marketing here at Parade. Parade is a tech company, and we're providing capacity management tools for brokers and 3PLs. And you can find us on Parade.ai.
Awesome. Very good. Thanks for that. And Jake, can you give us an intro? What's going on at Exo Freight nowadays?
Yeah, so I'm the president here at Exo Freight. I've been in the industry since about 2008 with a number of large companies and startups and some in the freight tech. Exo Freight today, we're specializing in the really the tech side of the open deck world, right? So kind of a mode that's often overlooked. A lot of shippers that kind of go without access to the latest and greatest technology that some of the great companies in the software freight tech space are working on. They're not necessarily solving the problems and the nuance of the open deck space, and so that's a problem we're tackling as a provider of tools for shippers and carriers, and on the execution piece, making sure freight moves for our customers.
Wonderful. That is awesome. And I think we saw the announcement maybe last week that Exo was accepted into Y Combinator. So congrats on that. Definitely an exciting step in your guys' journey. So with that, I'll be hosting today along with Nick Dangles. And Nick, why don't you give an intro for yourself as well?
Yeah, so Nick Dangles, the co-founder of Kinetic. I've been in freight for the past 10 years, all in brokerage. And Kinetic was started up, a year and a half, 2 years ago, with the goal of helping freight tech companies get their products into the world more quickly and with better adoption.
Awesome. Wonderful. So as we go into each of these episodes in the series, one thing that we think is important is really understanding a landscape of the space, right? So we're living day to day in our businesses. And, on this topic specifically of how marketing affects your tech stack, we wanted to kind of just give a landscape as step one. So Nick, why don't you take us away on that and we'll dive into some questions.
Yeah, so to dive into today's topic of marketing and your tech strategy, over the past few years, technology has been playing an increasingly important role in the transportation industry, and we're hearing more companies incorporate their tech usage into their marketing. Whether it's describing themselves as tech-enabled or promoting the proprietary tech, or just mentioning parts of their tech on their website, the way you use technology is starting to play a role in your marketing. So we wanted to do this webinar to talk through that relationship. And to kick things off, I just want to ask a really broad question and then kind of drill into some more specifics. But how does your technology relate to your marketing strategy? Jake, do you have any just broad overarching thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course. So, again, Exo Freight really is a technology company first. We have our own developers, create our own technology. We are looking at the world a little different than a lot of other companies, specifically in this open deck, flatbed specialized world. And you need to, get the word out, so to speak, right? How do we convey all the cool, interesting things we're doing? Why are we different than the 30-some thousand other non-asset-based providers out in the world? How are we different than some of the other freight tech ventures out in the world? So really being able to tell that story is important and really remembering, again, kind of going back to the why, so to speak, right? Why does EXO exist? Why do people want to work for us? Why do carriers want to haul for us? And why do shippers want to be customers of ours? And really keeping that in mind, hand in hand with the marketing and describing those things and being able to tell that story, while at the same time providing awesome service and creating awesome products for our customers, carriers, and users.
No, I think I love that too. It's a great overarching summary of it. I love what you guys are doing at EXO Freight. Dagmara, do you have any kind of just broad thoughts on it before we jump into some of the more detailed questions?
Yeah, I think I have to agree with Jake when he mentions how an important aspect technology is for the organization. Anything from hiring to retaining your customers, it all plays a role to make sure that you're presenting yourself in the best way possible and you're incredibly productive and efficient. And that just gives you that competitive edge over others in the space.
Yep, totally agree on that. So from there, I want to kind of dive into more specifics of like how these two things relate, your tech strategy and your marketing. And to start out with, like I see a lot of companies with very robust tech strategies. Some market it heavily and others not so much. So Dagmara, I'll start with you on this one. How does a company's tech strategy relate to their company's brand? I suspect there's some sort of a relation there between like whether or not you like put a heavy emphasis on that with your marketing or not. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that and vice versa, your company's brand in terms of like how that impacts your tech strategy.
I think that it depends on the positioning, right? You're using a keyword of brand. Brand is really like the personality of of the company. So if your brand is to be innovative, to be sort of the first adopter, then you need to speak about the technology that you're utilizing because it's just part of your personality. It's also an important aspect on how you position yourselves when you recruit and retain your team, right? If you're not mentioning the tools that you're using are the team members that you're trying to recruit, assuming that you're using outdated tools in your business. And so will that attract some of the team members? So innovation, success is important for the company. It's one of the core competencies that you have to show, right? We're using technology. We have relationships with our clients and stakeholders, and those relationships are possible because you're using technology. It's intertwining within your technology stack. So I think that technology is extremely important to your brand, and how you speak about this is important, but it really has to align with who you are as that marketing personality.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, we in our first series, as we were talking about hiring, this word brand came up a ton, right? And how that relates to your mission and your vision and your values. So, sometimes I think that it's interesting to talk about a mission and a vision and values and try to relate that to something that is, technology related, right? Like technology is a tool. So what are some of the ways that you guys are applying, your brand to seeking out the right tech, in a tech stack, for example? Is there any applicables there that are worth diving into? Dagmar?
So if there's anything particular is worth diving into, I think that you have to talk about the benefits that you're getting from your technology stack, right? So it's nice to say, hey, we're using an email tool. I'm talking specifically for marketing, but we're using an email tool, but what results can you drive with that? And so I think that that's an important aspect to talk about the transformation that you're creating for your customers with those tools that you bring into the table. How do they help you create a more competitive advantage in the space that you have, and how does it make you better to against your customer, against other competitors? So I think that those items are really important to bring in to talk about. If we're talking about incorporating this into your overall marketing strategy, I always think about, back in the days, the old e-commerce day when everybody had like the security stamp on the bottom in the footer of the website, like, look, we're protecting you. And there were a ton of articles about like, you have to, targeting users, like you have to make sure that you only do business with these websites. And so I think we sort of desensitized about this now, but there's still things that are important to mention and kind of highlight, whether it's certifications that we've got award. When we talk to customers, do we showcase these presentations that we have? Are there any seals, right? When you talk to your shipper customers, do you showcase the seals from or logos from your different integration partners? Because they want to see that whatever you're branding, it also you're speaking that language, that you're reflecting that in your materials.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, because you hit on, a couple key pieces, like speak the language, but then also speaking that through stories, which I even think, Jake mentioned a little bit, like, telling those stories of success is a great way, to communicate the effectiveness of tech. That's awesome. Cool.
Yeah. And I'd actually like to get Jake's take on the branding aspect of it. Because I know, Jake, I know you guys at Exofreight are very tech focused. Like, how does that impact how you guys are portraying yourself and like positioning yourself in the market?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of to play off a lot of what Dagmara was sharing, there's like an honesty piece to it, right? Like, who are you when you look at yourself as a company, as a brand, as an organization, your personality, the heartbeat of the company, so to speak, right? And you can be a great company. There's a ton of them out there that are using best-in-class software, right? This is the best, carrier onboarding tool money can buy. This is the best TMS available, the latest and greatest. This is the best this, right? And that's great. You can build a world-class organization that way, but then you look at it from the standpoint of, are we trying to build a better car, right? Am I building a better car? I'm one of the car manufacturers. Am I building a better car, the best car there can be? Or am I Tesla and I'm building a whole new category, right? Do I look at our products being like, yeah, I do move things from A to B. It's true, but I'm taking a stance on the world of like, here's who we really are. Here's what we're about. We are developing tools for shippers, for carriers, for our employees. We are trying to differentiate the way you've traditionally interacted with any of those parties and kind of carve out just a new, unique category. And we found this mode, right, this flatbed, specialized open deck mode, to be really the most, the loudest in terms of those jumping up and down, looking for some solutions and saying, please, like, we're operating on Excel. We're widely overlooked. The carrier base is unique in the size of the fleets. And, it was really responsive from the market, to say the least, about our mission. So it's really exciting that way. But I think being honest with who you are and being able to tell a good story without, embellishing a little bit, right? Either way, of course, you're going to put a little spin on it, but I think you tell a much better story when you're speaking, truthfully, right?
Yeah, I like a lot how you mentioned having the different technology for those different like audiences, if you will. Like, you've got your carriers, your employees, and your customers. And it kind of leads into the next question that we've been talking about that I got tagged for you. You have those different audiences as a broker that you're trying to appeal to. And we wanted to talk through how technology is important to each one of them and like what each one of them might want to see from a marketing perspective that you guys put out into the world. So like, I had intended to address them individually, but that's probably way too much time. So just think about those three different categories, Jake. What's important to each one of those from a tech perspective, and how should you like market that to them?
Yeah, no, and then that's something we think about both sides, right? Again, when we're building technology and when we're trying to portray it to the outside world, I'll start with the employees, right? From a marketing standpoint, really it's recruiting, right? How are we going to attract the newest talent? If we're trying to recruit from college, think about Generation Z. What are they used to seeing? When I first started in this industry, I was on an AS500 type box, right? It was a CRT monitor. This wasn't that long ago, right? I'm not that old. And it was, tabs and enter. And this is not the technology like the youth of today really grew up with. They're used to, not to be kind of cliche, but like a Facebook or Snapchat, or right? It's sort of like just different look, feel. The interactions are different. There's not menus on top of menus. Everything's sort of intuitive and quick. And, so how do you create technology that is really optimal? It doesn't feel cumbersome. It's not bland, right? There's a certain appeal, a certain look and feel that's really important. I'm a big UX, UI proponent, so I'm a big into the design piece for our users and taking that into account. Just creating efficiencies, right? I think people want to feel like they contribute to their company every day and don't feel like they're a recorder, right? If you think about some of the data entry type roles that exist, or calling a carrier, hey, are you there? What time did you get there? What time did you leave? Those are really tough roles to fill because they're pretty dull, and you want to do more. So how do you automate this? How do you be more optimal than that? And then again, how do you really recruit to that, right? Telling the outside world, hey, you come work for Exo. We are a tech company. The expectation when you get here is this awesome experience for you as an employee. We're doing really important things. We are changing the flatbed specialized transportation world. Up until, recently, that probably wasn't the most exciting thing, but supply chain, for better or worse, has been in the news lately. So I think it's very endearing to tell that story these days. So from the recruiting standpoint, I think that's where it makes a lot of sense. If you think carriers, we're trying to create a really frictionless path for carriers to do business with us, to do business with our customers, shippers, and create like a really simple path for drivers. Not asking them to do things that are outside the norm for them. Like, hey, do what you normally do. Here's how we're going to put loads in front of you want to see. We're going to help you run your business better. We're going to respect your time, respect, any limitations you have. We're not going to waste your time. We're not going to ask you to do all these extra things. And again, telling that story, right? Saying, hey, we're a better mousetrap, you Mr. Carrier, the 1 to 10 truck fleet. We're better for you because X and Y. Right, Exo makes it a lot easier because we're actually texting you loads or emailing you loads that you've done before that are similar or that you've told us you want. Right, don't worry about logging into something and having to filter through and find loads. Like that's the old way of looking at the world. This is the new way, and it's freight that's going to be important to you. And of course, with shippers, with customers, how do we tell the story that we are a software company? Right, we're a technology company. We want to provide you with tools that we offer that are better than anything you've used before, that are tailored to your specific needs. Oh, and by the way, we also execute for you, right? We're a really good specialized broker, marketplace, however you want to phrase it. And we are connecting dots between carriers and shippers and customers every single day. We move a tremendous amount of freight for the size of company we are and how relatively new we are. It's really resonating in the industry. And so those are exciting stories we want to tell. We want to tell about the successes we've had and otherwise overlooked, underserved industries, right? And industry verticals.
Yeah. So I'm going to go off script for a second here because I wanted to ask you a question about something you said. You talked about like the smaller carriers and like the recent college graduates. Do you find that there are like subsets within those categories I mentioned earlier that you try to specifically appeal to? And is what's important to them different? Like for the small fleets, do they have different needs and desires than the bigger fleets? Do the recent college graduates want something different than the more tenured employee? The small customers versus more enterprise customers?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. There's nuance on nuance. I'll start with carrier because that's where you started. If you think about the open deck, flatbed specialized world, it's owner operator dominated, right? It's all small fleet owner operator. If you are a driver, you're on the go, you don't necessarily have time to go log into 3, 4, 5 different sites to try and find loads for yourself and try and find the specific trying to match 3-4 days out. How do we take that work off their plate and do it for them? Create smart technology that can help create routes. If 60% of the freight that runs on a small carrier is their own shippers and customers, great. And then we fill the 40%. That's wonderful, right? And it's good for us as a company because we're taking that capacity off the market. They're no longer going out to open load boards. Our competitors no longer have access to that truck because we've taken it, we've brought it into our network, and they stay close because we keep them loaded and rolling, and we pay for the service they provide. When you're talking about recruiting, again, what's appealing to different generations of individuals, right? I think at some point, even coming in, right, I identify as a zillennial, I think is what they call it, right? I'm on that edge. So I started, like I said, on a CRT monitor, blue screen, it was brutal. And but I of course I love the new technology, right? Because I've been able to adapt and grow through it. If you sat a 23-year-old person down in front of what I started with, they'd be like, where am I working? Like, what is this? This is a dinosaur. This is unreal. One monitor? No, we have to have multiple monitors. The latest and greatest technologies or things that we've created that make their lives really simple. That's what they care about, when they come into work, because they want to talk about their job. I think that people are really proud of what they're doing and the work they're working on, especially with this connected world we live in. They want to tell stories on social media. They want to tell their family and friends, especially when you hear news stories about supply chains and crazy things going on in the world and empty shelves. I think that they want to tell great stories about their employers. Say, hey, I'm actually working on those problems. I'm solving for this. I may be an ops person on these 10 accounts, but hey, these are accounts that I see in the store when I go there. These are real problems I'm solving. And it's fun, to kind of show, what they're doing and how they're making an impact versus being a cog in a wheel with technology from 30 years ago. And, it's less exciting. You probably don't feel like you're as big of a solution, part of the solution than you would be otherwise. So I think that's exciting. And I love creating jobs for people that people find valuable and are exciting and can make careers out of, because this industry has a habit of chewing people up and spitting them out. And I'm sure that those people don't go on to say nice things about transportation logistics. So I'd love to change that and leave a good, solid, positive impact on the industry.
Yeah, no, like those are great points. And Dagmara, I want to quickly kind of toss the same question over to you about the different audiences, the carriers, the employees and customers. In your experience, like, what are some things that technology provides to a broker that's important to those audience? Maybe no, I'm not going to jump ahead of myself. That's the question. Like, what do you think is important to those audiences?
You sure? I think that the key is audience, right? Like, you have to understand what pain points they have, especially when we talk about broker versus shipper versus carrier. What are the pain points that they have, and how can the technology that I have on hand solve those pain points for them? Because if you can narrow down those things, and if you can show the benefits that they can derive, you have a better buy-in from your customer. And so I think that same thing. It's a little bit, when we're talking about younger generation, I think they have an expectation that there is technology in your workspace, or that you're using technology. And I'm optimistic about the new carrier wave that's going to come our way, because they're going to be proponents of utilizing technology and being very technology forward. I think the emphasis in knowing who you're talking about too, like who is the audience, what are the pain points, and how can the tools that you have quickly and effectively solve these issues for the audience, right? How can you make them productive? There's a difference between I'm efficient versus I'm really productive, and driving that with the tools, I think. And having the transparency and conversation with your team members and with your business partners or stakeholders is important. I also think that having technology that integrates with the different systems that your stakeholders work with, it's important, right? So if you have something that integrates with a system that the carrier is already using, that's beneficial. They don't have to learn anything new. They don't have to bother their driver to install anything new on their application, right? On their phone. So it's sort of listening into what your stakeholders are telling you they would like to see from you, and then utilizing technology that enables that integration with third-party platforms as well.
Yeah, that's really great. So I really love what both of you said, and I want to do one more question off script, and then we'll get back into what we had queued up. But I think it's really cool because we're talking about, okay, we need authentic stories, right? To go out to the marketplace, to draw in this audience. But then we're also talking, okay, we need to define this audience, and we need to figure out what their true pain points are, so that we're finding the right solutions to put in our tech stack, so that we can go out with those stories, and it's going to resonate, right? So my question on that, right, with the goal of trying to get some applicables out of this, right? You guys come from two different sides of the space, right? A freight tech side and then a broker side. So what I'd love to hear is, are there channels right now that you guys are exploiting or going to, that you're telling these stories in, that are resonating more than others? Because sometimes, when I work with people on marketing strategies, one of the things that I hear is like, I don't even know where to start. Like, do I just start posting stuff? Like, do I start crafting a story over here? So I'd love to hear from each of you. Are there channels right now that you see like, man, this is a great place to start telling your story, telling those stories of success? So why don't we start with Dagmara, and then we'll move to Jake on this one.
So this is like a whole webinar in itself, but
Yeah.
but I think that it starts with your website, right? Because you're building out your personality, you're building out your hub of where all of your information is sitting. And then you can take your story that you're putting out on the website, and then you're taking it and you can distribute it through different channels. So social media is a must. You have to be on social media. This is your sort of additional outlet to funnel out those stories that you're posting to your website. You have to have emails, right? So in order to have something to post to social, you have to have that content, and that content is created on the website, and then you're distributing this out. So I'd say start on the website, start with your blogs, start with visuals, and then start distributing this through different channels, whether it's your own social media, whether it's partnerships with different media organizations, and then email.
Awesome.
I mean, all of it at the same time, right? But
but I mean, web is a great place to start. That's a really good applicable for anyone who needs to do a site update or anything like that. So Jake, from your end as a broker with these, you have 3 audiences that you're kind of serving. Are there different channels that you guys are like, man, we really need to stay on top of this to get these success stories out into the world?
Yeah, no, I mean, you have 3 very different audiences there, right? I mean, I think for a recruiting standpoint, social's huge, right? And that's where you're going to have the biggest net you get to cast when people are looking for new careers, or they're coming out of college looking for a path to take. LinkedIn obviously is super powerful for that. So we utilize that for really all 3, but that's probably the biggest net we cast for recruiting. Carriers are tough. They're a tough audience to get a hold of, right? They have, different things they care about, right? I think sometimes there are some webcasts and shows and podcasts, things like that, the carriers like to tune into. So that's been a good, effective tool. I was on a show yesterday where it's mostly all carriers, right? And small carriers, dispatchers, hotshot type carriers, and they value 20-some thousand people in this group. So I think that's important to know where are the carriers lurking, where are these owner operators hanging out to get their information and get tips and tricks, and really focusing on that. Customers in our space, our audience is a tough one. They're, I would say, thick-skinned when it comes to receiving a lot of messaging from a myriad of brokers, asset-based providers, service providers, software, everything. So you have to get a little creative, right? It does help to be involved on LinkedIn and publishing white papers and doing email campaigns. I think you do need to say, hey, we're out here. Here's how we're different. Here's what's going on. But being in front of a customer, whether it's a phone call, video call, or face-to-face, or however you get that one-on-one time, that's the best time that we have to tell who we are, why we're different, why you should give us a shot. Figure out what your needs are. I think Dagmara nailed it with really just discovery. Like, let's talk about your needs. What do you care about? We've made a lot of assumptions in this space about like generalities of what we think or we know that open deck shippers want. But everyone's different. Everyone's unique, and different people have different needs, and there's different levels of technology. We've gone into very large shippers that are wildly unsophisticated, and they're very hungry for the technology we offer. And we weren't expecting that. We're like, this is more probably tailored to this size shipper, and that's not the case. We would have never uncovered that or sent the right messaging to an enterprise level account had we just kept in those silos. So really, that one-on-one time, whether that's phone calls, whatever it is, that's what's really important, and that's when you get into that storytelling, right? So being able to tell the same story, whether that's in email campaigns, your website, what you're posting on social, what your salespeople are talking about, or what you're having discovery calls. It needs to be a cohesive story the whole way through.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, there's another takeaway right there. Just cohesion through these different things, through the website, through what your salespeople are saying. That's a low-hanging fruit for a lot of businesses in our space. Is just making sure those things are aligned. So, yeah, thanks for letting me ask my off-script question, but that's wonderful. Why don't we move into the buy versus build question, Nick? That's definitely an interesting one.
Yeah, and like you hear the buy versus build dilemma come up a lot, and what we wanted to ask is it worth marketing the fact if you're using off-the-shelf tech? And I asked that because there seems to be more focus a lot of the time on people pushing the fact that they have proprietary this, proprietary that, whatever that word means. We'll circle back to later on. But Dagmara, let me kind of throw this to you. If you have off-the-shelf tech, is that something that's worth mentioning to people? Is it worth incorporating into your marketing?
I think it is. So
buy versus build,
I have a whole litany of things to say about that. I think build creates many challenges, right? Because you have to align with your organization. It takes a lot of time to build this. It takes a lot of time to understand what functionality your team needs to build out. And then, so that means you have to hire either new team members to build out that support within your business, or are you taking them away from other projects in order to work on this internal build? And a lot of times, at least in my experience, working with companies who build their own, by the time the product was finished, it was already outdated and they needed to add new stuff, right? So the integration with other technology services were also challenging. So I think that it's of value to brand or to talk about the brands that you partner with, because those brands provide value to you, right? They have their own weight, they have their own visibility in the market space. And I think it plays an important role when you speak to your stakeholders again, right? The carrier wants to know, what are you using? Am I going to have to learn this new service that you want to make me use in order to pick up a load from you? The shipper wants to know, does it in some way maybe integrate with the systems that I'm using? Is it going to help me get my loads out faster, right? So depending on who you work with, it can generate a sense of safety with that familiar name and the possible integration that you can work into this off the shelf technology. So I think it's an asset. It's not something that you should hide.
No, I think that's a great point, particularly what you said about the partnerships. We were actually talking to a customer of ours the other day who brought up the same point, that the partnerships and like bringing that to the attention of customers and different other people, it serves to elevate both brands a lot of the time. Jake, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the same question.
Yeah. So, I mean, really all the points Dagmara had about, the negative is why we want to market it, right? To be honest with you, right? I mean, it's hard. It's really hard to build technology and to build technology people want to use. But, I think that's the main challenge. And it's, we looked at ourselves and we said, we're a technology company. We have more developers than I have brokers, right? That's the biggest department by far. And it's you can look at it as a burden, right? Hey, this is a lot. You're constantly building. Dagmara alluded to it. You're really never done, because once you're done, 5 years from now. I mean, I remember technology 5 years ago today. You're like, you were cutting edge then. You're table stakes today. So constantly evolving, constantly being able to, create those connections with other people's technology, whether it's proprietary or off the shelf, right? Being really nimble, building really open systems, being willing to work with everybody. Those are the challenges, but that's why you want to market that. That's why we want to say, hey, we've done this, we've accomplished this hard thing, and we're successful at it, and here's why it's better than some of the stuff that's out there. But that's not to take away or detract from people that, again, I've been at companies where that was our model, was to go out and get the best in class that was available, right? Create a really well-rounded, killer execution-focused brokerage that used technology that was available to fill those gaps that we didn't want to build. Why build freight matching technology when we could go out and talk to a Parade or somebody else? Or why build tracking technology when there's a ton, right? I mean, you can list on two hands how many different tracking solutions there are. Why reinvent the wheel? Stand on the shoulders of giants. You've seen what some of these companies have been able to do. I think you just even call out Molo. Andrew's even said, he goes, listen, we're an execution company. We don't have a ton of developers. We're not building all this own technology. We're the top-notch, world-class, premier freight brokerage, and we're awesome. Great. They're doing really well for a reason, right? They're killing it out there. They got a great deal done. So there's nothing wrong with that. I think where people can take a turn is when they're just not honest with themselves, their employees, their carriers, and their shippers, and that's where things probably get a little murky. But I'm sure that you have some questions probably leading into that later on, so I'll leave it there. But obviously, when it comes to marketing software we've developed, we're very proud of it, and we want to tell that story to the world.
Nice.
So just a quick continuation on this question, because from each of your sides, right? It's almost like you're letting the problem that you're trying to solve inform whether you do the buy versus build, right? Because if like for you guys at Exo, Jake, if you were to be solving a problem that already had a solution out there, do you think that you would have gone the route of saying, well, let's take this and develop a tech stack, or would you still have gone down the route of build versus buy?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting perspective to kind of like take a step back and look at it. I've done both now. And I can't say one's necessarily better than the other, except again, in those scenarios. I would say that there are unsolved problems out there that we still didn't tackle by building technology, right? We may have, not as Exo, but in my previous lives, we still looked at what's available. Maybe there's some tweaks we can make or some skin or, some tools we can build that go hand in hand with it. But we didn't tackle anything head on, right? That just wasn't what we were built for or what we were trying to do versus Exo, right? I think technology now that we're building is flexible anyway, right? We move other modes. Customers sometimes have a little bit of drive in or expedite needs. And we want to be able to solve that. We don't want to send anybody or turn anybody away.
Right.
So we need to have, something that's all encompassing. So again, a lot of these things have been solved for. That's great. But we think our tech is still great for those modes, those shippers. We look at the world a little bit differently, the way we interact. You could say that, some similar things have been done before, the way we do it, but, we feel that ours is just, a little bit better and a little more nuanced, right? And again, focused on a niche that most people steer away from for, good reason sometimes, but for whatever reason, they have not decided to tackle this head on like we have.
Yeah. No, that's good. Awesome.
Yeah. So here I'll kind of drill a little bit further into the specific types of tech. We talked about buy versus build a little bit, but are some types of technology a better fit for marketing than others? And like that might be a really broad question, but what I mean by that is like you don't often see people shouting to the rooftops that they're using load boards, right? It's just not one of those things you hear people talking about all the time. So like Jake, in your opinion, first, are some pieces of tech a better fit to market than others, like the table stakes for shippers and whatnot?
Yeah, I think, for marketing, you're trying to come up with differentiators. Like, why is someone watching, your video, you're reading your white paper, opening your email, taking your phone call? If you're like, hey, we have an integration with all the load boards. Okay, cool. Like everyone, the 38,000 brokers have that, right? What's differentiator around that? And you mentioned table stakes. I think there's things we talked about, or I personally talked about, sitting around an executive table, preaching we're best in class. We're using cell phone tracking technology. We have this app. We're doing ELDs, things that were like, oh my gosh, I can go in your portal and I can see where a truck is anytime I want. Yeah. Oh, revolutionary, right? Fast forward 5 years, you're just checking a box for the transportation manager. Do you use ELD, MacroPoint, whatever it is? Yes. Okay, great. Like that was a 15-minute pitch with its own slides a few years ago, and now it's like you better be able to, right? So do you market that? Like, I mean, it's really an expectation, but are you doing anything different? Is there something novel that you're bringing to this industry that has been around for a long time, that has seen technology come and go, has evolved over the years. Is there anything left to innovate? Some people would ask. Yes, there is. And if you are the one out there innovating it and putting in the investment and the time and really doing those things, market the hell out of it. Talk about how you're different, what you're doing. Again, I'll go back to this. I told you, are you are you another broker? Are you another better broker? Are you another better trucking company? Or are you really a new category? And if you are, then you definitely want to scream from the rooftop how and why and why you should be a part of this, because it's going to be table stakes in 10 years. And did you want to get on early and be right? Or do you want to be the late adopter later on? So finally, okay, I'll give in and be on. I'll be a part of this. I think that most shippers, especially in this environment, and carriers and people looking for jobs, would rather be at the front end rather than the laggard in this freight climate.
Yeah. So here, we have a few questions left here that I wanted to actually get through. And Dagmara, I'll throw this one to you. It's a more tactical one. We've talked about this a little bit already today. So if we've talked it to death, just let me know. But if you were to incorporate parts of your tech strategy into your marketing, how do you go about doing it? Is it, like you mentioned, the website, but do you do white papers, blog posts, sales collateral? How do you do it from a marketing perspective?
All of the above.
Fair enough.
I think something similar mentioned to the question that just came before. I think that a lot of tools do similar things, right? Or, when Jake mentioned visibility. Yes, nowadays it's kind of like having to have car insurance. Without car insurance, you can drive, right? Without visibility tools, you can do business, because that's kind of an expectation. And it's at some point, it becomes a matter of not talking about the tool that you have, but the results that the tool can drive for you.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
And so it's no longer about, hey, I have this application or I have this tool. It's about this is what I can do for you with the tools that I have in my toolbox. So it's a little bit going to your question, Nick. So I think that talking about, or part of that marketing talk about the tools that you have, is having a white paper, having a case study, and talking about the results that you've produced, or for a customer, for example. Conducting email promotions, talking about the benefits and the access to information that you can produce with the tools that you have on hand. When you have presentations, yes, it's nice to have these logos, right, of the different companies that are well recognized in the space. And if there's a badge that you want to share, that's great. But again, driving or highlighting the benefits that you're creating for your customers, and showing how you differentiate yourselves from all of the other people in the space. So I think those are the main things that I would talk about. I would definitely highlight the benefits. What is the transformation that you produced for others?
Yeah, I think that's great. And I'm going to tie it into the next question, because I think it relates. One of the most important parts of rolling out new tech is how it's adopted within an organization. What do you see as the key strategies to making sure you're marketing your tech properly within your organization? What should people be considering? Does it also kind of go back to what are the outcomes, not just, hey, here's this new tool that we've got?
I think that this is the most challenging thing for a lot of organizations, right? The people at the top get excited. Hey, we've got this super tool. It can drive all of these great results, but it's not well marketed or promoted within the organization. Mm-hmm. So I think that the lack of understanding of what bothers your employees is the lack of adoption, right? So you have to, when you're looking out to roll out any new technology within your business, you have to tell your employees why they would like to use it, right? What is in it for them? Does it mean that, hey, with Parade, you will be able to now book more freight with the carriers that you speak with? Cool. That means that I get more a commission pay, right? So how does the use of this tool translate to the end user and their benefits? I think that full transparency is important, right? What are we trying to accomplish with this tool? How will this benefit us as a company? And then how will this benefit you? I think talking about the successes that individual have in different departments, like, hey, look at John, he has XYZ results that he got from this, from using this tool. You could too, and maybe we got a little bit more extended training for those late adopters. I think that especially if you're introducing a tool that is drastically different from, let's say, your spreadsheets, right? Or a lot of that manual interaction that brokers have. That might require a longer training process, right? Maybe it's split into a longer time frame when you're slowly introducing different features of the tool, so people can really understand how they will use it and how it will benefit them. And then look maybe for internal influencers, right? Who are the people that really make the difference in the organization, and how you can bring them on board so they then influence people within their department to use your tools.
You only get one shot too.
Yeah.
From being on the broker floor, you have one shot. If you're going to roll something new out, it's better go, well, you better do it right, because if it doesn't work and doesn't make their life easier, you don't get a second shot. That thing is going in the closet and they're going to do it their way, right?
One more thing also is how you brand yourself, right? Your company culture is incredibly important. If you don't position yourself, look, guys, we're going to use the most innovative tools to create a competitive advantage for our business, we're not going to survive. And so it's important that we're constantly adopting these tools that we bring into the business, so we can all make more money and increase the profits. And I think that positioning external and internal are two extremely important aspects of bringing in new technology.
Wow. Yeah, that's very well said.
Yeah,
that's perfect. I love because that statement, I think, really well wraps up how branding, understanding your audience, the messaging flows all the way downstream to how things are adapted within your organization and how that organization essentially has a relationship with it. So yeah, very well said. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, why don't we do this? We're going to move into the last part of the series. So every logistics of marketing webinar that we do, we like to end it with hot words and phrases. And as our space continually evolves, there's always certain language that pops up that becomes like a hot word or a hot button topic. And, like as it related to hiring, when we spoke in our first webinar, something like the Great Resignation, right? It gets tossed around a lot. So what does that actually mean? And what is the intended definition? And does that kind of get lost along the way? So as it relates to technology and our topic today, we wanted to throw out a couple of these words that we feel pop up, and we want to get your quick take on it. So 45 to 60 seconds. What does it mean to you? What should it mean to our community? And we're just going to kind of rapid fire through these. So does that sound good to you guys?
Let's do it.
All right. We're going to start with proprietary tech. Let's, Jake, why don't you give us your 45 to 60 second on proprietary tech?
So what does it become to mean? I think any technology anyone ever uses, right? I mean, especially if they put like a skin on it or something like that, right? Everyone talks about proprietary tech. What it really means is truly something that has been built. It's one of one. It's unique to that organization. That's truly proprietary. It's something that they've created, put a stamp on, they own, and it's unique for those reasons. Why has it gotten muddled down? I think just everyone feels like they need to market themselves as being like this tech enabled, right? Because that's become so popular. So people kind of grasp at straws because they want to feel relevant. I think that's unnecessary. I think people can be really truthful and honest. Say what they are, say they're best in class execution company. They use a great software stack and leave it at that. But I think people feel the need to talk about their proprietary technology. And I can tell you 9 times out of 10, most customers probably really don't care. So stick with honesty. If you built it proprietary, if you bought it, it's not.
All right. Let's stay authentic. I love that. All right. Next one, Dagmara.
Yes.
Innovation. This is another word that we see kind of paired with this topic of tech. So what does it mean to you? What should it mean maybe to our community?
I think it's a very fluffy word.
Okay.
So I think that it lost a lot of weight. And I'm all about, I think in the marketing space, we like to use, so it's innovative. But I think what it needs to be replaced with what it really means to be innovative. Doesn't mean that you have the latest technology. Doesn't mean that you actually apply this latest technology in your day-to-day business. So to me, it's just very broad and applies to so many different things. It's a process of doing things, right? It's a process of doing things in a different, more unique way, modern way. But I think we need to be very specific when we say innovative, what it really means, so our audience understands what we can bring to the table.
Love that. All right, I'm going to throw another one at you, Dagmara.
Okay.
Data versus information.
Oh, I love this one. Data is dirty. So, and I say it in dirty in a way that data is very unorganized, and it requires a lot of effort and a lot of kind of hands-on touch in order to make it viable. Everybody has data, right? Schools have data. Our businesses have data. Like everybody has data, but data is really meaningless if we cannot compile it into information, and information gives us actionable insights. So how can we take action based on the information that we have at hand? And I think that's where tools come into place. If you have effective tools and you can really derive effective results from these tools, that's what information is. Just like data driven, actionable insights that you get for your business to make business decisions.
Ooh, I love that. Very well said. All right, Jake. Visibility. This is a fun one lately. This pops all over the place. So dive into visibility for us.
Yeah, well, I think we've touched on a little bit of that, right? And visibility, transparency, whatever you want to say, it's become sort of, I would say, cloudy. People, again, take it as maybe visibility in trucks, where stuff's at. I like to take it a little step further, right? If I'm truly transparent, I'm truly offering visibility. If you think about, brokers in general sort of have that bad rep historically, right? Because there's this cloak and dagger. So I think if you're being authentic and visibility, it's like, hey, let's talk about what the market really is. Let's be really honest. Let's talk capacity. Let's talk what's happening in the world around us. If there's a problem, let's be really honest. If there's no coverage, let's be honest. Let's talk about solutions within that. It's just kind of pulling back the curtain and really exposing yourself with your customer and having, more mature conversations, right? If you're afraid to have conversations with your customers, that's a bad sign. And I think a lot of people find comfort into trying to be a little more cloak and dagger. But I found always honesty is the best policy. As lame as that sounds, it really is. I think customers see through that. So, if you want to be truly visible, truly transparent, it's remove everything. Do not try and cloud the truth. Let's talk honestly about what's happening. If I submitted bad rates because the market's going to change, how do we get through this together? How do we work it? I think people forget this is a relationship business. It's a partnership. If you feel strongly about that, you should be able to have those tough conversations. And so that's what I would say visibility really means, not just saying I can tell you where a truck is when you hit a button.
There you go. Good deal. All right, here's one for both of you. Connectivity. This is kind of the little pair to visibility. So, connectivity, when we talk about tech-enabled, comes up so many times. APIs and all of these little, three-letter acronyms that we toss out. So, Dagmara first, connectivity. What does it mean from your perspective of, coming from the freight tech side? What should it mean to us?
To me, it means integrations. Do you have the integrations of all of the other technologies that you're using, so your team doesn't have to open, 5 browser windows in order to book one load? And that to me, connectivity equals integration. How quickly can I access my information in order to make business decisions?
Awesome. Jake.
Yeah, I think goes hand in hand with that. But, even more simplistically is saying, am I asking somebody to do something that is outside their normal process, right? If a carrier operates in a certain tool or TMS, am I asking them to go outside that to work with me for this one-time thing? am I asking a customer to do something uniquely different for me because I built my own tech? I need them to do this. I think connectivity just needs to be like, no, I'm not asking you to do anything different. My tools are here for you to use. Mm-hmm. If you've went out and purchased a 8-figure piece of software that's integrated across your organization, obviously that is what you're using. We want to work with that tool and provide you everything you've come to expect, right? Your visibility, for example, receiving tenders, being able to price, being able to operate your business your way without having you to do special things, right? It's about reducing friction between all parties involved, your employees, your carrier stakeholders, and your customers.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just to mention one of the comments that we have from LinkedIn. So Tim mentioned to us another word that gets tossed around is proven. What people increasingly want to see is proven technology that works. I think there's a lot of power in that statement. Does that resonate with you guys as well?
Yeah, I agree. I think that you have to show the results or the benefits. It's really going down to the benefits and the transformation that you're creating for the customer.
Yeah, so good. Well, awesome. I think that is going to wrap up our little quick hitting hot words and hot button topics there. So just want to say thank you guys for joining us on this. I think there's so much within this topic that could be probably 3-hour long, webinars just in and of itself. But I think we covered a lot of ground with what we were touching on. And if there's anything that I'm hearing and learning, even from just hearing you guys speak today, is understanding our audiences that we're serving and crafting an authentic message is really kind of like one of those first places we can start in really understanding how we can reach for tech and start to apply, marketing our tech in the right way. So that was a really big takeaway for me. Nick, was there anything that stuck out to you from today's conversation that you would highlight?
There's really so many things. It's hard to put my finger on it. I'll say that one of my favorite parts of doing these webinars is the amount of stuff that I learn from the guests that we have on it. And like Jake, Dagmara, I learned so much stuff about marketing and technology and the role that they kind of play together. I really appreciate both of you guys being on here today.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks, y'all. So we are going to continue the Logistics of Marketing webinar series. So thanks to everyone who tuned in for the live stream today. Our next episode, we're going to be covering a really fun topic. We're actually going to talk about how marketing plays into content creation, something that is can be a big can of worms, can be a daunting task. So yeah, definitely stay tuned for that. And thank you again to Dagmara and Jake for the time today. Really, really appreciate it. So have a great rest of your Thursday afternoon, y'all.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thanks.
All right. Take it easy, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.